Hi, I'm back again. I'm finally making a video and it feels like I've been away from doing YouTube forever, but I have been missing making videos. I've really been looking forward to having time to just sit down and just record and not have to worry about college and have to worry about other stuff. We won't get into it, but today we are going to be looking and reacting to my Premier League predictions for the 2023-24 season. I never know how to feel making these videos because I look back thinking I've done a good job, but then I look back at the actual things that I've said and realise I haven't. So on the left of your screen is going to be my predictions, and then on the right you'll see the actual table. And straight off the bat, the top three I got perfectly right, so it's a great start. To be fair, you wouldn't be considered a genius to put Man City first. I mean, it's just boring. At this stage it is boring. 4 in a row now. Arsenal genuinely couldn't do much more. For the most part of the season it was a three-way title race, and that was exciting. To me anyways, it was very exciting. And to see someone else enter the fold with Liverpool to try and take the title off of City, it was good to see, but Man City are just too good. Like, the last day of the season was so anticlimactic. Didn't really feel like a massive title race or kind of like a massive, oh, what if this happened, what if that happened. It felt like City was just going to cruise through the league once again and just wipe the floor with whoever they face. And they pretty much did do that. It did go down to the final day, but ultimately it just wasn't enough for Arsenal. Like, on the final day, City had that scare with Kuda scoring, which was an amazing goal, by the way. Can we just talk about that? I'm fairly certain Arsenal scored and then Kuda scored, like, very close to each other on the final day. But then when Rodri scored it to give City a comfortable lead again, it was just kind of like, oh, well, that's that then. And it's just boring. Like, it's just boring watching City win everything. I'm glad they didn't win the Champions League, and I'm also glad they didn't win the FA Cup, because again, it's just a different team winning stuff. Like, it's so boring watching the same team over and over again just dominate. They're just too good though. They're too good, and hopefully they get charged, because the 115 charges are still sitting there. Nothing happening about that. But you can't really say that this team is going to go away unless Pep leaves or they get charged, which I can't see either happening anytime soon, so who knows. Arsenal have had a good season though. They did definitely get closer, and I think that they pushed City towards the final day. They scored so many goals. Like, they won games by like a 6-goal lead, a 5-goal lead, 4 goals. In the Champions League they were okay. I'm not sure that they topped their group. I'm fairly certain they did, but like, I don't think that squad is experienced enough to win the Champions League. Everyone was saying, oh, Arsenal are going to win the Champions League. They weren't. They were never winning the Champions League. They had to face Madrid. They could have come across Dortmund. They could have come across Inter, which like, it's not the biggest thing, and lost to Bayern. Like, again, that squad isn't good enough to win the Champions League. Will they? I don't know, but I think Arsenal are another couple of years away from winning something. That squad can definitely win the Premier League, definitely not the Champions League. I can't see that happening anytime soon. Liverpool had a good start to the season, a very good start actually, but then I think towards like the end of the season they kind of like got some bad results, and then Klopp leaving as well is something that I definitely didn't expect. I don't think a lot of other people expected as well. So that possibly could have put pressure on the players more so than inspire them, because everyone was saying that Klopp deserves a farewell and he deserves, you know, the Premier League, the Europa League. The Premier League was never going to happen. Like, realistically, once they started losing points, they were too far behind. And Arsenal and City were just so much better than them in a lot of aspects. They were way more consistent. The Europa League results was a shock, especially the first leg. Like, what was it, 3-0 or 4-0 at Anfield? There's going to be big changes happening next season, obviously in the manager now, but whether or not some of their key players will leave, I'm not too sure. Salah is rumoured with Saudi. I don't think that's going to happen. Not to Saudi anyways, but will he leave? I don't know. Van Dijk could be coming towards the end of his stay. I don't think Liverpool will have a great season. Well, I say they won't have a great season. I don't think they'll have as good of a season next year, because they're going to have to take a step back to maybe take 2 steps forward again. Aston Villa, however, are a very good team, which I'm excited to see what they do in the Champions League. I'm kind of worried that Villa's form in the Champions League based on what happened to Newcastle. Now, obviously, they're 2 different teams, 2 different coaches. But I'm more so looking at the amount of games that they'll have to play and their squad depth, because, like, obviously we know Newcastle had so many injuries and the Champions League kind of took a place in that. Now, that's not saying that Villa will have a bad Champions League campaign. They might have an amazing one, but it just depends on what group they're in as well. But they've had a good season. They've had very good results, some shock results as well, and they've had big players step up. Like Watkins got what? Top assister somehow, but he got like something like 18, 19 goals. Tottenham had a very good start to the season, but then injuries hit them. I think Maddison was definitely out for a while, and I think Van de Ven was out for a while. They were a bit inconsistent towards the end of the season, but like they're a good squad, and I think their manager will bring in more quality. I think what he brought in this season was good, and I think that'll only continue. Chelsea are... What are Chelsea? It's an absolute shit show, to be honest with Chelsea. They managed to get 6th, yes. Like, from my expectation at the start of the season, it actually was 6th, so I guessed that right somehow. Like, a couple of their results towards the start of the season and towards the middle stage of the season were appalling. And really, up until the new year, they weren't good. They were sat in 12th, I'm certain, for like at least 50% of the season. Like, they were sat in mid-table for so long and then pulled it back towards the later stages of the season. Palmer was an amazing signing, and I think if not for him, they would be, I wish, relegated. But no, like they'd be what, like 17th, 16th, if not for Palmer and his goals. And some players started to come good towards the end. I think Caicedo started to play really well, but then they sacked Pochettino. Why? What was the point? Like, they finally started to come good towards the end, and there were a lot of Chelsea fans saying like, oh, sack him, we don't need him, we need someone better. Now you sacked them, who'd you bring in? Like, who wants that job? Who wants the Chelsea job? It makes no sense to me, but it's just a real like coin toss, to be honest. They could either have a really good season or a really stinky season. Newcastle were okay. I think they had a lot of expectations on them because of the Champions League. They were drawn in the group of death, so you couldn't really guess whether they'd have a good campaign or not. Like, it was literally a coin toss with every single one of those teams. But they've had a lot of injuries, and I think that played a part in their season. They probably would have finished higher if not for a couple of injuries. I think they had a makeshift backline for a while, but Man United, however, did not have a great season. Yeah, they won the FA Cup, but like, in the league they were shocking. Compared to where Man United should be, though, that's the thing. Because like 8th place overall isn't the worst finish, but for Man United they should be challenging for the title. Like, a club of Man United stature should never be in 8th. There's rumours of Erik ten Hag leaving. I don't think he should. I definitely think he should be given another season at the least. But players like Rashford and Onana and Anthony were all off form for the majority of the season, but then you've got the likes of Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo and Højlund, who eventually found form, but they're just very inconsistent. And for a team of Man United's quality and stature, they shouldn't be that inconsistent. Like, they're so up and down. Like, they're literally on a roller coaster of good results, bad results, shocking run of form, good run of form. They're inconsistent. Speaking of inconsistent, yeah, I don't know what to make of West Ham season, to be honest. Like, it was okay. Overall, it was okay. We did get top half. We did have big results. But overall, it was just like, it was so inconsistent. I had them to finish 14th. And if you were to talk to me before the season started, I had no hope. I had absolutely zero hope, because at the time of recording my predictions, we didn't sign anyone. Like, I think a couple of days after I recorded that video, we had signed Edson Alvarez, and I think we were on the verge of signing James Ward-Prowse. And if you had told me that before I had made those predictions, I would have had them higher. 100%. I would have put us higher. Like, I would have probably said like 10th or 9th. I definitely wouldn't have had us above like Spurs, for example, because I did think that Spurs were going into the season a bit better than us. I did put Spurs challenging for Europe, however, I feel like they have been a more comfortable challenge than us. That's if we were to sign players. But the big talking point for us going into the next season is going to be the manager. Now, Moyes has left the club and Julian Lopetegui will take charge. Now, first off, I want to say, David Moyes, thank you for everything. You have given myself and a lot of West Ham fans a lot of memories that we will cherish until the day we die, but it was time to go. Like, league form was not good enough. It really wasn't. We showed relegation form for a lot of the season. For the people saying that West Ham fans are treating David Moyes wrong, you shouldn't be able to comment unless you're watching this team week in, week out. like some of us are doing. A lot of people are taking into account the Conference League, where we finished this season, and the big results that we've had. Like, we've beaten Arsenal, we've beaten Man United. But if you look at the other games that we lost heavily, 5-0 to Fulham, 6-0 to Arsenal, 4-1 to Aston Villa. Like some of those games have been dreadful. Like, they've been so poor to watch. And for a team that I had so much confidence in challenging for Europe once again towards the middle parts of the season, like, it's not good enough. And for those who still aren't convinced, I know a lot of people love stats, so I'm just going to give you a couple of stats. In the Premier League this season, we've conceded 74 goals. The only teams that have conceded more goals than us have been the 3 teams that got relegated. We've had 5 wins in all competitions in 2024, 2 clean sheets, which, for a manager who plays defensive tactics, that is appalling. We have little to no squad depth, especially in attack. In January, when we need signings, we loan out 2 players, we sell 1, and we bring in Calvin Phillips, who we didn't need. We didn't need another midfielder, and he proceeded to have one of the worst debuts in the club's history, and turned out to be one of the worst signings in the club's history. We also still have one of the highest average squad ages, and that's to do with our defence. Like, our defence, we have an aging defence with, again, little to no depth. And this isn't all Moyes' fault. Like, I can't just sit here and constantly slate Moyes for all of this happening. Like, the performance of the players were inexcusable as well. Like, don't get me wrong. But the main point is, we need a change. West Ham needs a change as a club, and I'm hopeful that Lopetegui can bring that. Will it happen straight away? I don't know. I want to change. That's all I want. I want to change. I want good times again at the club. It's just been too inconsistent this season, and I'm hoping Lopetegui can bring European football back, because we've no European football now this season coming up. So hopefully that'll play a part in getting us to challenge for it again. Palace, I'm actually very excited to see what will happen next season. Like, towards the end of the season, Mateta in particular was incredible. We all know that Eze and Elise are very good, but their new manager has come in and has just rejuvenated the squad, and honestly could play football that could be getting them to challenge for Europe. And I think next season in particular, Palace will definitely be able to make that next step. I've always said that Palace were this kind of mediocre side who are pretty much the definition of mid-table, but now I'm confident that they can definitely push forward and maybe push up the table. Like, they got 10th, which is again good. I predicted them to get 13th, which again, it seemed somewhat reasonable for a team of Palace's quality, but I think they'll improve. I definitely think they'll improve next season. Brighton, I predicted them to get 8th. Their European campaign wasn't spectacular. Like, they got knocked out fairly heavily by Roma, I believe it was. But I think some performances in the league just weren't really that good enough, and I don't think some of their players that performed well last season performed that well. Like Ferguson in particular. Ferguson was a very, very good young prospect at the end of last season. Like, there were rumours of him going for a lot of money for big clubs. He stayed, but he didn't really perform well. He performed well at the start of the season for a couple of games, but then really fell off and didn't really get much game time, to be honest. I think Mitoma's also injured for a lot of the season. I predicted Bournemouth to get relegated. Wow. Okay. Bournemouth are a decent side. Like, some of their players in particular, like, obviously we know Solanke is very much their talisman and very much their goal output. But some of their other players as well, like Semenyo, and their manager are very good as well. I think he signed a new deal as well. It's just going to be interesting who they bring in and, like, if they're going to improve. Will they improve? I think it's going to be difficult. I think if they bring in a couple of signings, they could definitely... I think they had a pretty bad end to the season, but overall, like, they were punching above their weight. Like, I think a few people had them to go down, me included, clearly. Did I get Fulham right? I didn't. Okay. I predicted Fulham to get 12th. Now, Fulham they had some good results, but overall they kind of had a mediocre season. Is it Muniz? Is their Brazilian striker? He was good towards the middle stages of the season. I do think they just need to bring in a couple more good players, and they can definitely improve their squad form. I think Marco Silva's staying. Don't quote me on that. I'm fairly certain he is. But I think Fulham are a tricky team to play on their day. Like, they play good football and they have good players. If I'm not mistaken, Wolves were pushing for Europe at one point, and they kind of fell off. Like, they really fell off. I thought they were like top half of the table and then ended up 14th, but I actually didn't realise. Did I get right? No. I have the league table and my predictions beside each other, so I'm kind of looking. But again, Wolves had good results, I'm sure. They did get really stiffed over by VAR a lot. Like, a lot of decisions went against them. But some of their players in particular, like Ait-Nouri, Neto, Hwang Hee-chan, like, they're good players. Maybe too good for Wolves, to be honest. Like, Ryan Ait-Nouri especially. And Mario Lemina. I don't know, again, just kind of like, okay. Everton, I had just tipped to stay up. They did get stiffed over by the points deduction. But the quality of their squad is just really poor. Like, when you have Calvert-Lewin as your main striker, like, what can you do? Speaking of strikers, Brentford, however, the big talking point about Brentford is obviously Tony being missing for half the season. Yeah, he came back and he had a good purple patch of form, but didn't really do much else after, like, what, 4 or 5 games? There wasn't really a fear of them going down, but I don't think there's going to be any massive improvements. Like, yeah, they do have quality in Mbomo, Wissa, and in the midfield, but Thomas Frank might have to look in definitely getting a new striker, because I feel like Tony will leave. Where he'll go, I don't know. There's rumours of him going to Arsenal, and apparently there's rumours of him going to West Ham, which isn't going to happen, realistically. Wouldn't be opposed to it. Like, listen, Ivan, we'll take you in a heartbeat. Forest at 17th, I feel like, again, they did get stiffed over by points as well, whereas City somehow didn't. But Forest were kind of just like, yeah, they have good quality, and I think the manager did play a part of it as well, because I think, was Steve Cooper there at the start of the season? It's been such a long season that I forgot. Like, yeah, they stayed up, and I didn't think I had a doubt in my mind that they stayed up, but I think it's just quality. Like, some of their players are very good, like Hudson-Odoi and Morgan Gibbs-White especially, and Murillo, but that's just not spread out across the pitch. Like, they shifted in between goalkeepers. I'm not sure about their defence, but I think they'll be in trouble next season. I think they may be tipped to go down. I'm not too sure though. And the 3 that went down are the 3 that came back up: Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield. I think everyone predicted Sheffield and Luton to go down again. I was shocked at how bad Sheffield were. 104 goals conceded. They were absolutely shocking, and to be honest, didn't really deserve to be in the Premier League again. Luton, however, did put up a good fight. Like, I think a lot of people, when they made early predictions, they tipped Luton to be rock bottom. I definitely didn't expect them to stay up, but I also didn't expect them to go down in the way they did, because on the last day they technically weren't completely relegated. It would have had to have been a miracle. I think they had to win by 6, and I think Forest had to lose by 6 for them to stay up. Now, again, a miracle was needed, and it was a valiant effort, but ultimately it was just not meant to be. Burnley, however, yeah, I predicted Burnley to get 11th. Don't ask me why. I think Burnley were just too good for the Championship, and I think a lot of people kind of overestimated what they could do in the Prem. Obviously, who they had in the Championship last season, they didn't have in the Prem. Like Nathan Tella, Ian Matson. But some of the players that they did have from that season just underperformed, or just didn't play it enough. Because Manuel Benson, as far as I'm aware, just barely played. And Kompany is now looking likely to become the Bayern manager. How? I'm not sure. We'll leave him to it. But hopefully we'll see Luton Town come back up, though. Because it's nice to see a team of that kind of like tightly knit community to be in such a prestigious league. I'm looking at the table and I'm looking at my predictions. I could have done better, for definite, but I think it could be worse, to be honest. But there you go, there are my predictions. I do enjoy making the predictions videos, but I also hate making reaction videos because they can show how poorly things I've said have aged. And to be honest, it's mainly just an excuse to waffle about football, which, if you've noticed, I do a lot.